Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving headfirst into Samantha Shannon's massive 800-plus page fantasy epic, The Priory of the Orange Tree. Honestly, if you're looking for a standalone story that packs all the punch and depth of a massive multi-book series, well, this is absolutely it. Let's navigate this incredible world together. So think about this for a second. What actually happens when an entire world's history is built on a complete lie? That question is literally the beating heart of this novel. We're going to unpack how this one central mystery drives an intricate, high-stakes tale of dragons, secret mages, and serious political betrayal. It's a story that asks us to really question the myths we accept as absolute truths. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with a world divided by dragons, move into the factions, faith, and magic, introduce our four key protagonists, unravel the epic plot, hit the climax and hidden truths, and finally, talk about this book's new fantasy legacy. All right, part one, a world divided by dragons. Okay, so the core conflict of this world is entirely geographic and, well, draconic. Over in the East, specifically in isolationist countries like, say, Haiki, water dragons are revered as literal gods. The greatest among them, Quiriki, actually forged cooperative relationships with humans. But jump over to the West and the South, and dragons are a source of absolute terror. To them, they aren't gods. They're fire-breathing worms that carry a deadly disease called the Draconic Plague, or the Red Sickness. Because of this terrifying association, the West has completely closed its borders, while the East maintains strict isolation just to protect its sacred creatures. This total, fundamental misunderstanding between the hemispheres, that's the geopolitical tension driving the entire novel. Moving right along to part two, factions, faith, and magic. Let's wind the clock back a bit. Exactly 1,000 years ago, a catastrophic event called the First Great Eruption occurred at a volcano known as the Dreadmount. And out of this fire emerged the Nameless One, basically the ultimate wyrm, who threatened to destroy all of humanity. Now, according to Western religion, a knight named Gallion Berethnet saved the day, vanquished the beast, and married Princess Cleolind. He claimed that as long as his royal bloodline sat on the throne of the Western kingdom of Inyas, the Nameless One would stay in prison forever. But fast forward 1,000 years to the present day, and the draconic threat is resurfacing, which means, yeah, that accepted history might not be as rock solid as the West wants to believe. To really understand the supernatural rules at play here, we first need to define Sidon. This is a very specific, incredibly potent fire magic. It's derived directly from eating the fruit of a sacred orange tree, and it's wielded exclusively by a secret society of women in the South known as the Priory of the Orange Tree. They have to operate completely in the shadows because over in the West, magic is considered pure heresy. Now, on the flip side of the magical coin, we have Styrin, which draws its power from the stars. Magic in this world relies on a super delicate balance. In fact, an extreme imbalance between the fire of Sidon and the cosmic power of Styrin literally birthed the ultimate villain, the Nameless One, over a millennium ago. He's not just a monster, he is the physical embodiment of magical chaos and true malice. All right, on to part three, the four key protagonists. Our narrative is anchored by four scattered heroes whose seemingly separate journeys gradually and brilliantly intertwined. First up, we have Edaz, or Ede. She's secretly a mage from the Priory, working undercover in the West as a lady-in-waiting just to protect Queen Sabrin of Innis from assassination. Then, completely on the other side of the world in the East, we have Tane. She's an orphaned young woman whose sole ambition in life is to become a Miaduchi, an elite dragon rider. Also in the East is Nikolai's Ruse, an exiled alchemist from the West who is consumed by grief for his deceased lover and totally obsessed with discovering an elixir of life. And finally, we have Lothbeck. He's Queen Sabrin's closest childhood friend, a deeply honorable guy who ends up banished on a literal suicide mission. So, four characters, oceans apart, whose lives are about to violently collide. Let's get right into part four, unraveling the epic plot. The dominoes really start falling when Tane, right on the eve of her dragon rider selection, illegally hides a trespassing Westerner to protect her own ambitions, ultimately handing him off to our exiled alchemist, Nicholas. This one single transgression basically sets off a massive chain reaction of alliances and betrayals. Meanwhile, back in the West, Ede is actively saving Queen Sabran from assassins. As Ede's magical protections, her wards, begin to fail, her relationship with Sabran shifts from strict duty to a deep, forbidden romance. Then, just to isolate the queen, so Bran's court manipulators orchestrate the banishment of Loth, sending him straight into worm-infested territory. Everything is accelerating and the fragile peace of the world is just shattering. This brings us to part 5, the climax and those hidden truths. Okay, quick warning, we are now entering full spoiler territory because this central mystery flips the entire foundation of the world upside down. So, the Western religion, virtuedom, is built on the myth that Gallion Berethnet defeated the Nameless One, right? Well, the Priory holds the actual historical truth. It was Princess Cleolind who defeated the beast using Gallion's sword, and then she founded the Priory. Gallion, acting out of pure narcissism and wounded pride, went back west, lied about his heroism, and established a whole religion around himself. What does this mean? It means Queen Sobran's royal bloodline isn't actually keeping the world safe at all. The secret magic of the orange tree is. The historical erasure of a woman's heroism birthed a 1,000-year lie. Wild, right? Because the royal bloodline is basically just a placebo, the Nameless One inevitably awakens, and this apocalyptic threat absolutely forces humanity's hand. To survive, the inward-looking East and the magic-fearing West have to completely shed their historical prejudices. Today, Ead, Sabran, and Loth actually have to bridge the geopolitical gap, combining Eastern dragon riders with Southern mages and Western royalty. It is a stunning climax that proves global diplomacy, unity, and diversity are actually humanity's strongest weapons against true malice. And finally, Part 6, A New Fantasy Legacy. You know, author Laura Eve called this novel the feminist successor of The Lord of the Rings, and for a really good reason. Samantha Shannon has crafted an absolute masterpiece that honors classic high fantasy while totally subverting its oldest tropes. You have the Dark Lord, the magic swords, the sweeping landscapes, and the deeply detailed lore of Middle-earth, but it's all viewed through a distinctly modern, inclusive lens. What makes this world building so incredibly refreshing is the complete removal of structural sexism. Shannon doesn't make her female characters fight through a wall of misogyny to prove their worth before they're allowed to save the world. Women exist as highly respected warriors, queens, mages, and saviors right from page 1. They're already free. Instead, the novel tackles other vital themes: the historical erasure of women, as we literally just saw with Princess Cleolind, the massive weight of leadership, duty versus desire, the complexities of sapphic romance, and the sheer difficulty of bridging divided nations. It takes the epic framework we all know and just breathes entirely new, inclusive life into it. And that leaves us with a final provocative thought to chew on. The Priory of the Orange Tree is a thrilling ride, full of dragons, political intrigue, and magic for sure. But at its core, it's a brilliant exploration of storytelling itself. It really challenges us to think about the stories we accept as absolute truth, and more importantly, the hidden voices that have been erased by time and pride, just waiting to be rediscovered. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly, highly recommend you experience this incredible journey for yourself.